Welcome to the Radiantpreneur Rising Show with me, Jess Tomlinson. Interviews to inspire a new movement of leaders and entrepreneurs. The ones who lead with vulnerability and authenticity, stand in visibility, allowing themselves to truly be seen, are fierce and playful and sexy. Choose business as a spiritual practice. Seek collaboration versus competition. No, giving back is not an option. It's a necessity. They do it their way. They radiate. They rise. Now, let's rise together. All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome. My name is Jess Tomlinson, and this is the Radiantpreneur Rising Show. And I am so excited to have my really dear friend, amazing leader, Angela Rose Fields, here with me today. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And it's an absolute honor to be on the show.
It's an honor to have you here. I'm super excited to talk to you for many reasons, but I want to make sure that I start with the first question that I ask every guest, and then we can really dive in, because you are just like this wealth of beautiful spirituality, knowledge, and I know you're in like different transitions right now, and you're taking women to Hawaii, and there's just so much yumminess to get to. But I'm finding that I'm like skipping right in and like forgetting the main question. So the first question that I want to ask you is, how are you leaning in to your visibility edges right now in your life and your business?
Ooh, that's such a good question. And you know, the timing of that it probably is just absolutely perfect, because what I'm finding is that right now, to be totally honest, I'm up, like absolutely up against a visibility edge where I'm like really feeling myself. I'm noticing like a part of myself that wants to like run and not be as visible. And part of that, I think, has to do with all of this transition that I am going through. And yet I am really inviting it to be an opportunity to bust through all of that, you know, that it can be, which like any of the internal fear or whatever, and just to really like be grateful that it's showing up so that it's an opportunity to step out and become more visible. So I'm leaning into it by like sitting with it and really asking it what it is that's even coming up, because I know that at my core, I love being in the spotlight. I grew up a performer, and showing up anyways. So just acknowledging it, and then finding little steps to take that, you know, don't let it run the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The little steps, like it really is, especially when you're someone, which I know you are, that continues to show up and really like be seen, and you push your edges. You do. I know this is something about you, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because I just so appreciate your level of continuing to go there and to share some of the things that you do share that are oftentimes really vulnerable. So I want to ask you a little bit more about that. But first, I think maybe we should try taking out your headphones off. I think like your earrings which are so beautiful, are probably like clinging against them. So let's just try headphones out. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yay. So yeah, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Like, what do you have anything specific that you feel like has been coming up around your visibility lately that are those, you know, maybe familiar like visibility edges, or maybe new? Do you have a specific example you can share?
I think so. For me personally, I've noticed myself up against this edge a couple of times when I'm at a space where I'm switching gears. Like maybe I'm, you know, shifting the way that I'm really like showing up in my business, or shifting the work that I'm doing a little bit. I find that I feel like the clutch is in and there's like a moment where I'm like, huh, how do I, what, like what does recalibrating look like? So that's what I'm noticing myself, like the space that I've been noticing myself in again.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes from really wanting to show up totally authentically. But if I'm changing the words that I'm using in my business or my messaging or my marketing in any way, then I feel like it takes a second for me to really tune into like, okay, so from this standpoint, what does that look like authentically? So that there's no like kind of weird incongruencies as things shift.
Yeah, I know you're going through a big shift right now of, is it cool if we talk about it?
Yeah, this can like
Oh,
be the big reveal.
cool. Yeah, I mean, I'll let you share more, but where you're shifting from really honing in on helping people with cancer and doing healing work around that, which has got to feel, so big and so exciting at the same time. And I know anytime that I've kind of like shifted, which I've done a lot, as I know of really evolving and realigning. And the more that we do that and just really come into alignment with who we are now and the work that we're supposed to be sharing now, it always feels like this big, like, and I know you work with the body too, so I'm curious about your experience with this, but like it's not just like a mental, like, okay, now I'm doing business in this way shift. Like it's literally like our bodies need to adjust to both like physically and energetically. So can you speak to kind of what that process has been like for you?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, because right there's the mental component and also like kind of I think almost the mental unknown when we shift that feels like part of what comes up as like the what's this going to look like? What's this going to feel like? It like allows, us
Mm,
to look at it, or it's allowed me to look at any fears that could come up. And literally just knowing that like there are going to be these like beautiful new opportunities for my work to open up in different ways. And I think that uh, my body starts to wonder what that's going to look like. So it's been an added opportunity to really take the time for embodiment practices and really listen to where the like new tightness is showing up and what it's talking, what it's telling me. That's definitely how I like to look at my body and like look at my way in for blocks is like, where am I feeling the tightness in my body? What is it, what is that symbolizing for me? What comes through when I really meditate on that? So I love that question because I think the body is it's one of the main ways in for me to really see what's going on that maybe I haven't processed yet on a mental level or any level. It all shows up in the body.
yeah. Yeah, it really sounds to me like, and I can relate to this, it's like a part of us when we are shifting and growing and changing, both in life and business. It's like really sitting with that uncertainty. And at the same time, like, right, leaning into trust so that we can get through it, but also like really seeing the possibilities and like leaning into what is to come. I'd love to hear, do you have a favorite embodiment practice that you do?
Hmm. My practices shift so much. Um, as of lately, it feels like it's been a lot more just kind of like wild feminine fluid. Like at this, I've had more like routine yoga practices and different things that I've done in that way. And now my practice, I've just been opening up the space for whatever wants to happen. And some days that might be just sitting. Some days that might be deep stretching. Others days it's just dancing and free flowing and moving. But I've really been wanting to like open up the space for just whatever wants to come forward, like taking away the structure and just letting my own body and my own consciousness lead the way. And then that's been a really fun exploration.
Yes, you and I are very similar in that way. I don't have like a dedicated practice. I really just like to honor what wants to happen in the moment. And sometimes that's just sitting in silence. Sometimes that's doing breathing exercises. Sometimes that's like crazy dancing, or like there's so many different things. So I love that you're sharing this because I think so many times, like, we hear the advice of like, you need to have a practice and like, what is your daily practice and your daily routine, which is a very masculine model and can be very powerful, at different parts in our lives, like to really commit ourselves to like a practice. But I love that it sounds like you're really just leaning into more of that feminine, like what feels good and how can I tap into my body to move through, the emotions or the discomfort and get back into my power.
And it's fun what comes forward. Sometimes I wouldn't expect what comes forward when you just open up the space that way. So yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, amazing. So I want to talk a little bit around your experience with how you've been able to share so vulnerably on social media, and what that experience has been like for you. I know it hasn't been like, just like me, it hasn't been all sunshine and roses, right? And unicorns or sprinkles or whatever we want to like
Yeah.
magic fairies on there. Um, and yet I also know like it's been a powerful part of your journey. And it's something that so many entrepreneurs, even when we're on this spiritual path, we can bump up against and feel like, nope, can't do that. Like that feels really unsafe, or it feels, there's all these different gremlins that come forward. So can you speak to your experience of how you've been able to share vulnerably and just what that's been like for you?
Yeah, gladly. I love that question. I mean, it's kind of been like trial by fire, like it was I don't
Yeah.
think it was quite so graceful in the beginning. and um and that's part of the learning process and part of the journey. But at the end of the day, I think um really all like em- empathic at the core of ourselves, and we can feel when someone's not showing up vulnerably. um so I used to find that I would get a lot of advice, like I would share something and I could tell that people felt sorry for me or didn't know how to react. And so I feel like that's really been the like biggest teacher or lesson is looking at how to really incorporate our expertise and our knowledge, and to allow sharing vulnerably to inspire as opposed to like inspire pity, and I think that the way that has really come to feel good has been to first of all wait until until I really feel ready to share, like wait
Mhm.
until it's not something that I could burst into tears at any moment about.
Right.
So to wait until I feel like I've processed through something far enough.
Mhm.
And then to really allow it to be, whether it's a post, like a Facebook post or a blog post or a video or whatever, to get to that point where I've gleaned the wisdoms
Mhm.
and feel like the lessons and the strength and the courage can come through from it. Um, and and I think to the point where waiting until I get to the point where I feel like it can be empowering for others,
Mhm.
and I think once we have reached that point in our process with whatever we're working through, then why not share? Because I don't know about you, but what I see everywhere I turn is like the like yearning for genuine connection, because social media can be that, but it also can make us feel isolated or disconnected in certain, more so than ever in some ways. So I think we're all really craving that like genuine um connection, and to know that we're not alone, that like these experiences, I mean, these experiences that I've talked about around, like, I like to talk about trauma a lot and the way that the brain works. Every human has experienced trauma, and the way that we interpret trauma is different from me to you to the next person. And so, um, for me, it just feels like a soul's calling, like to destigmatize it so that we know that we've all, like, we can start to speak about the fact that we've all experienced these things,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that we're broken or anything. And this is how we really do that. We transmute it into wisdoms and into fuel that, like, that fuels our life. So
Yes. I like to say that that's like normalizing something. The things that are in the shadows, of course, are going to remain dark and seem wrong and bad. But once we actually bring them out into the light and other people can say, yeah, me too. And I don't just mean in the form of the Me Too movement, but like me too. I've experienced that kind of trauma too, or I've felt bad about my playfulness as an example of something that I oftentimes will struggle with. And so I really appreciate you sharing that this is a deeper healing on the collective for us all to be able to really come out, for lack of a better term, and share some of the vulnerable experiences we've had. What has the impact been for, your life and your business, the more that you've been able to effectively and powerfully share from this place and glean the wisdom?
that's a great question. And the so most recently, last month, I wrote a blog post about sexual abuse and a couple instances that I had encountered, and that one was really, it was an amazing outcome that just, like, sent me to tears of really, like, gratitude, because I feel like I was able to see the impact almost immediately. And first it came in waves of other people sharing their stories with me, and
Yeah.
sometimes people who had, will say that they've never shared that with anyone, which that in itself just is like, it really hits the heart for me, because I think, the first time we decide to share something like that, it's a really big deal, and so that feels like an honor. But with this specific article, I actually ended up receiving a message from a man that I had gone to, like, middle school and high school with, who works in the military. And
Mm.
he shared with me that he actually does sexual assault awareness trainings in the military, and asked if he could use the article that I had written as part of the training.
That's so amazing.
And so that, yeah, that one blew me out of the water. Like, that to me was such a sign to keep going and to keep sharing experiences. Because, yeah, that, he said it would reach thousands of people. And of course, it's not always going to be like that extravagant of an outcome, but it just felt like such a sign to
Yeah.
keep opening and keep speaking. And
Yeah.
um, it you never know. Sometimes a message will come back like a year later after I've shared something from someone who said that it impacted them in some way. And that feels just as big too. Like, that shows the ripple effect.
Yeah, and sometimes we just don't know who we teach, or not who we teach, well, we might be teaching them, but who we
Right.
touch. Like
Right.
sometimes we will never know. And so it does take this level of trust that, if anything, just do it for the possibility of touching one person. And then if that doesn't feel like, enough for you, do it for the possibility of your own growth as well.
Absolutely. And I love that, because it's true. I think more often than not, especially with social media, we don't know who we impact
Mhm.
oftentimes.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, that's huge. And I love that. I love that you are so committed to just continuing to show up and and to really share these experiences that you've had and what you've learned. And I know you have had not an easy life, but you have had a really amazing, fascinating life. And I'd love for you to share just a little snippet. I know it's always hard to like, put our life into a summary, but I guess the question that I want to ask you is, how how do you feel like everything that you've been through in your life, and you can share as much or as little as you want, has really impacted who you are today and also the work that you do? Big
Okay.
question.
Yeah, the abridged Angela life story and the impact. So I guess I will start by just sharing a little bit of my story. I was raised by my parents. My dad's a transcendental meditator. My mom's an astrologer and has been for like 40 years. And they were kind of pioneers in alternative healing in the 80s, really. And so my upbringing, I was, surrounded by a lot of spiritual teachings and a lot of spiritual teachers, and also a lot of alternative forms of healing, a lot of exposure to indigenous ways of healing. And it let's see, where did I go from here? So as much, and to the point of like having traveled pretty young, when I was 15, I went to India. When I was 16, I spent time in the Amazon with shamans. And I really feel like it just opened my mind, or maybe my mind never had a chance to kind of like close in the way that certain societal pressures can do, So being raised with stories of different spiritual teachers in India who could materialize a ring or put their hand through a wall, or having witnessed certain hands-on like healing phenomena
Wow.
as a
Have you seen a
youngster.
spoon be bent? I really
I
want to see somebody bend a spoon with their mind.
You know what? I haven't, but I've been working on lighting up a light bulb with my hands. It's still
Yeah.
something I haven't mastered yet, but I will let you know when I do.
Yeah, but wow, you've witnessed some miraculous things like such as that?
I
Wow.
have witnessed, yes, absolutely. And yeah, then there's a home actually that I was taken to as a child where it was dedicated to a spiritual teacher, and there was honey pouring out of the walls and ash pouring out of the walls wherever his photo.
Whoa.
So there was just so much like magic was a normal thing, like that was, I think my standard of normal has just been different. And so it's impacted my work very much in the sense that on one hand, I wanted the scientific knowledge. Like I wanted the cold hard facts. I wanted to understand what was going on. I do have a very an engineer's mind in that way. But on the other hand, it's still like, I just truly believe that anything is possible, that absolutely anything is possible. And I think that with that mindset alone, from like a coaching standpoint, with that mindset, the transformation is endless.
Mhm.
So it's been really interesting to be raised in a Western culture with more of an Eastern philosophical mindset, I think.
Mhm.
And I just feel really blessed. I just
Mhm.
feel open in that way.
Yeah. Wow, that's so amazing. I can't even imagine what it would be like. Like, I did not grow up like that. I didn't know anything, and we didn't even go to church. As far as I knew, I didn't have a connection to, anything as far as like the construct of like, the institution of any kind of spiritual practice or religion or whatever. But I did always feel this like deep sense of like, yeah, like curiosity, into spirituality. And I was definitely a little bit of kind of and I still am a little bit of a black sheep in my family of like, where do you come from? You're so different. I'm like, I don't know. So I love how like kind of no matter what backgrounds, we have, sometimes we just find our way to this path of really creating our own reality and helping people. And I'm just still blown away by, like, how you were exposed to everything so young. It's so cool.
Well, and I think that it's great the way that you've experienced it too, because you've really found what resonates with you. You know, it's like when what I see from you is a deep sense of spirituality, and it's just, what is spirituality? It's just whatever feels connected for each person. I don't think it ever really looks one way. So I really appreciate that in you, that it's just like, it just emanates, you know.
Mm, thank you. Yeah, it's really just it's a way of being, right? This really kind of, I look at it as like a deeper knowing, and coming back to the trust again. It's like really that ability to trust, and we
Yeah.
are so connected to something way bigger than what we will ever, you know, be able to comprehend. At least I don't think I will be able to, which is part of the coolness of like the mystery of it all, right? Is continuing like to open up to these different possibilities and mindsets. And it makes life really worth living, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit more about the work that you do with people. And actually, let's start here. Let's start, like, what prompted this shift and the inspiration to now be moving into the realms of supporting women, or supporting maybe women and men or whoever, um, in healing their cancer. Like, I don't even think I know this, and we've talked quite a bit. Like, what prompted that in your soul?
Um, that's a great question. So I have been working with people around chronic illness and pain. And so in
Yeah.
that sense, it's just narrowing it down a bit more. But I mean, I've been both doing quite a bit of that in my practice, and also a lot of mentorship and training other healers and helping them to draw forward their own modalities. And I'm trying to remember like what the exact moment even was. Actually, I remember.
Like,
Okay.
sometimes it's so many, right?
Yeah. Like when did that start? Because it's kind of been like percolating in me for quite a while.
Mhm.
But last year I actually was in a float tank and I was meditating. And one of the things that like just came through loud and clear was like, we can work with cancer. We can work with
Mhm.
anything. And so that's when I kind of started to open myself up to the possibility of that. And then I ended up having a series of pretty like wild series of circumstances that led me to doing a session with a woman who had a really large cancerous tumor.
Mm.
And that opened my eyes to the possibility of it. And then the process for me since has been kind of teetering on that edge of knowing that I really want to, but not really knowing if I was ready. And it's taken me through all of these different studies of really working with death and dying, and working with deep grief work, um, and taken me into these really deep places in myself of really having to work through. I can tend to at times go lean towards feeling overly responsible for people and
Mhm.
people's outcomes. And so it's really taken me to these really deep places in myself to be able to feel like my core is strong and I am solid and I can show up as a support role, but well aware of the fact that all I can really do is play that support role and get out of the way, knowing that choosing to take this on as my niche will mean that some people that I work with will pass away. Like, that's inevitable, and
Mm.
that's
Mhm.
not for me to decide. So I think in part it's come about because I like a challenge. Like
Mhm.
I tend to get bored easily,
Mhm.
and change really quickly and
Girl, me
fast.
too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know I'm speaking your language with that one for sure. And so I found myself just really sitting with that and wanting to really uh, look at it. And I feel like it's inspired me time and time again as I sit with it to really look at like what I think living means. Like, what does it mean for us to show up in the
Mhm.
world, like fully living life? So it's that's what's really led me here, is knowing that I don't think there's anything that could bring me more fulfillment than to support people in really getting clear on like how they truly want to live their life, whether that means just living, for a short amount of time, or really pulling through and fully recovering with a newfound sense of purpose, because that's what happens when people go through experiences like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm so curious. Like, so it sounds like to me like you really trusted the download that you got, and then you had this experience working with the client, excuse me, and then felt what it was like to support her in her, journey with cancer. And so I'm just kind of like tracking like your process, right? Of like you got the download, you witnessed what it was actually like to do this work, and then you continue to kind of like get comfortable with like giving yourself permission to not have to take full responsibility for the bigness of cancer and the healing that, and I love that you mentioned that, because I think that really goes, I mean, especially for somebody who's doing such like tangible life or death type, work. Like, honestly, that's kind of what it is, right? But also for anyone, like, no matter what work we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's something that um, I also have to tell myself a lot, because I tended to like overly take responsibility and be like, I am the person to get my clients results. And I'm always telling my clients like to give themselves permission to, not have to take full responsibility for their clients' results. So it's like, I love that this is coming into the conversation, especially for such, the shift that you are making, because I feel like it's just a reminder for us all that part of the amazing magic and healing that occurs no matter what line of work we're doing is really like having the presence to show up and fully support somebody in the journey that they want to have. And I like that you said whether they just, they want to live the best life that they can, or if they really want to like heal, because it's such a personal decision.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I'm having a moment. I know that my best friend, she passed away. She had cancer. And I didn't think she was going to die. Like, it just wasn't even a possibility for me. Like, I was just like, nope, she's going through this and she's not going to die. Like, it never even crossed my mind yeah, she would pass. And her journey was her journey. And part of me also wishes that she would have had somebody like you to be able to just make the most of those last, months, because she was really just in such a state of pain. And I think like when we can have somebody to support us through those really painful moments, even just to be heard, like she put on the like tough face front. She, even with me, like, she's strong, and I'm gonna hide what's really going on. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to your own soul and your own guidance to do this work.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I hadn't actually known that it was cancer. I knew she had passed
Mm,
away.
yeah, yeah, it was cancer.
Yeah.
So what would you say to entrepreneurs who want to incorporate more healing into their own work? Like, what would be just some of your thoughts around how we can all do that? Like, really be better healers, no matter, if we're business coaches. Like, I know I incorporate certain level of healing into my work, or health coaches or whatever, right? What would be your thoughts? Because I know you have mentored so many healers?
Hmm. I think that if we just allow the experience to unfold naturally, it happens. Our own healing ends up coming up front and center. Because when we start to do this work, any kind of coaching, any kind of healing, it's all transformative. It's all healing.
Mhm.
I think every roadblock that we come up against, every difficult encounter that we have, ends up being exactly, our medicine and exactly what we need personally. And we're better off for it. Every time that we have a difficult encounter with a client or whatever it is, whether it's, even the block around showing up visibly or whatever, like when we can really start to tune into what's really going on for us and glean the wisdoms and really ask why it's coming forward, like what lesson is in it for us, then I think it allows us to show up as better coaches, healers, people in the world. Because I don't think that it's ever a mistake that we encounter, that we have the interactions that feel less than comfortable or whatever. And it's varying degrees. But I know that the first couple of years in business for me, I think it just felt like continued education as a healer and as a coach. Things
Mhm.
that no certification program was going to teach me, but that I probably end up supporting people through more often, now were
Mhm.
just really what showed up through life and through taking on entrepreneurship, because it's no small feat and it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. So what I hear you saying is really like, we have to really do our own work and take our own medicine, but share that with our clients as well, because our own healing will benefit them.
Exactly. And then it becomes fuel. I think
Yeah.
it ends up showing our own authenticity comes forward, our own path comes forward, and then we're able to connect with the people that we can really support.
Yeah. As an energetically sensitive woman, how have you been able to really take care of yourself in this roller coaster that is business? What are some of the ways that you have really taken care of yourself
That's a
through the
great
ups and downs?
question. Yeah, that's a great question. Let's see. Prioritizing self-care above anything else, even when like making the shift in my mind, especially financially, that my own health and my own self-care needed to be number one, like above everything else.
Mhm.
That has been huge, because as long as I can stay in that mindset, then I can have the energy to bring in the funds and to keep the business going. But if I shift that priority to even number two, it just doesn't work for me. And so I think that first and foremost. And then for me, that self-care personally looks like a lot of baths.
Mhm.
And specifically salt baths, because of what it does energetically to cleanse the energy body and to refuel the physical body mineral wise.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people about that in case they're not familiar?
Oh, I mean, well, my understanding with salt baths is, when for me it's magnesium, to have a lot of,
Mhm.
there has to be a lot of magnesium, especially if I'm going through intense times of like transformation. My body craves intense amounts of magnesium. So sea salt,
Interesting. Yeah.
yep. So sea salt has a good magnesium mineral content. And then my understanding is that it helps to flush the energy body. So for people that are energy
Mhm.
workers, there can be different Reiki practices and whatnot to make sure that we clear our field, but it also just kind of, acts as a magic erase marker for that too. And then on a physical level, I've really started working with different herbs and plants. And one of my, kind of gifts has been that I find my body just reacts to the thought of the plants I need. So for me, I've been like singing from the rooftops the praise of turkey tail mushrooms.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because
what do turkey tail mushrooms do aside from being so pretty?
yeah, I know they're really pretty. They're not particularly tasty, but when we make them into,
Really? Are they bitter?
they're like, it tastes like eating a tree.
Yeah.
Um, but I boil
Mm.
them and make it right a little earthy. um, but they are really, really good for the immune system. And so they're
Mm.
actually great for anything autoimmune, HIV, cancer, all of the above.
Yeah.
So for me, learning just the different components of nature that have been like speaking to me. Um,
Mm.
and I think actually that reminds me, the other thing for me has been to really um, set my schedule to the cycles, like in rhythm, in harmony with nature, like to the point of I've even like I take the week of the new moon off to like recharge. And that was a message that came through for me loud and clear at the beginning of the year, was like I wasn't honoring the cycles. And as
Yeah.
soon as I shifted into like, I just felt like all of a sudden I was in harmony with nature. I was like trying to swim upstream. And so
Yeah.
that really changed things for me.
Oh my gosh. And that is something that it's just so amazing. Like I remember when I learned about, the cycles, like our moon cycle on our period, like just how our bodies fluctuate. And then I learned the cycles of the actual moon and like it's so mind-blowing once you actually like pay attention to how your body is operating. And I think for so many years I wasn't able to do that because number one, I wasn't taught, so there was an awareness that had to be come to light. But then the second part was for me getting off birth control and actually getting in touch with like, oh, whoa, my body feels this way. Oh, wow, I feel super energized when I'm like off my cycle. Like, this is a great time for like creating and doing things. And then even noticing like just how wired I am when it's a full moon and I can't sleep. And I'm like, this is like what people of ancient traditions and in indigenous times, like they knew this stuff, right? And we just like go through life so numb unless we're taught and we actually like prioritize getting in harmony with those cycles. So I love that you are doing that even more.
Well, and I had the same experience. It was like 5 years with an IUD, and then once I got off it, all of a sudden my intuition was like through the roof, and I was like, "Oh, my body speaks to me." Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Mine was like, it's funny because I kind of like went like, I'm kind of like this. I went extremes. Like I was like not really aware of like, the impact of eating non-organic. And I always ate very like quote unquote healthy, but even like the level of, pesticides and things that I was eating and I wasn't aware of. And being on birth control and using toxic products and not realizing that, oh, there's other alternatives and these are potentially like, hormone disruptors. And when I like went cold turkey, literally, like on everything, and then I also started eating mostly vegetarian, it was like, whoa, like same, my intuition totally opened up and like was just it made such a difference, and it all comes down to, I think, what we're saying, which is really like, how can we best take care of our bodies so that we can really show up and be the best vessel for ourselves and for the change that we want to make in the world.
Yeah, and it's different for each one of us, right? We just have to find that recipe.
Yes, right. Finding the
Mhm.
recipe. what what would be your advice for how people can start to tune in and find their own recipe?
Mm. Ooh, so there was an exercise that I did in December where I took days off and I just decided I wasn't going to do anything that I didn't want to do. The whole
Mm.
size was really around, I wanted to know what my happiness like looked like, felt like. Um, and so I would recommend taking a day a week, or if you have the opportunity to take a few days off and just dedicate it to doing, you know, only what feels good, like only
Mhm.
what you're craving. Um,
Mm.
I think that's a really good place to start, because to my surprise, when I did that, I ended up sleeping like the whole week.
Mm.
And I feel like it allowed my body a reset, because since then, with the exception of like when I'm sick or actually need extra rest, now I genuinely feel like I'm in tune with my own energy levels, my natural energy levels and my natural rhythms. But I don't think I wasn't before. I was still running according to what I thought I should be doing, or I don't even know, you know?
Yeah.
So that would be my advice, is to start taking a day a week or some time to
Mm.
just really open up the space for doing just what you feel your body needs, and see what that is.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have a very vivid memory, which is awesome that this is coming through because I know you're doing a retreat in Hawaii that my sweetie pie Ben is going to be filming, which I'm so excited for you. Um, but I have a memory of the first trip I ever took by myself, just for me, was to Hawaii. I've only been once. And I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to plan anything, that I was only going to do what felt good. And I had like a little bit of anxiety at the time around it because I was still like in the corporate life, and that like constant doing, right? And then I had the little gremlins of like, you're not, even fully enjoying your vacation. You're not like milking the goodness out of, Hawaii and seeing all that you can see, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it was like the best gift that I could give myself
Mhm.
because I just followed from moment to moment. Okay, this feels good now. I don't have to worry about what feels good later, just what feels good now. And I remember like buying like a little cooler and then, okay, I'm going to go and try to find a store. And I just like wandered and found a store and bought like some yummy food to take to the beach. And then I just hung out on the beach all day. And then I was like, okay, what feels good to do now? And I booked like a dolphin tour. And okay, what feels good to do now? Oh, okay. The one thing I did have planned though was a mermaid photo shoot. So a lot of people have seen that like on my social media, which is super fun. But that was it. And I also remember I had to come up with a mantra for myself. I didn't have to; it actually came through. But I remember wandering and feeling like that a little bit of that anxiousness kind of coming back of like, oh, what am I doing? Um, and the mantra that came to me is one that I still use today, and that I use with the women who go to Bali with me. And I made little cards, and it's um, there's nowhere to go. There's no one to be, just perfectly here, perfectly me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And like, what totally surprised me about doing an exercise like that, which, is kind of like hedonistic in nature, is just how much like there was like shame that I was processing through in just allowing myself to be. Like I was able to like feel these like layers of things that I just had to shed and work through, because we all deserve to just let ourselves be. But I didn't even realize that that was like so prominent. And I think we all have that if we don't give ourselves the permission to just let down.
Yes, I so agree. And I think, it's easy. it- it's hard to understand unless you actually just do it and then look back and realize, wow, when I gave myself permission to just be, there were actually so many rewards that came out of that, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, there's no way to explain it to the mind that is so conditioned to receiving our worth through doing,
Yep,
you
absolutely.
know?
It's such a simple exercise, but it is like once you've done it, you realize that it's profound.
So profound.
Mm.
So I want tell us a little bit more about your retreat. Like, who are you bringing together and what do you have planned? I'm so excited to hear more because I only know like a little bit of it from Ben and what you've shared so far. So tell us.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the retreat is for both men and women. I really like to bring both
Awesome.
men and women, or anyone. It can be non-binary, whatever you identify as gender-wise. Everyone is welcome. And so it's specifically, I've created the retreat as a space to really connect deeply and vulnerably, um, each morning. So it's going to be on the Big Island, my favorite place to stay on the Big Island, which is called the Dragonfly Ranch. And it's like, I describe it as like an adult treehouse. Like it's
It's so
not,
cute. I looked up
it,
photos.
Thanks. Yeah, it's not actually a treehouse, but it's built on like a pretty steep property. So there are all these just unique rooms built throughout it, and then on the top there is the Illuminarium, which is like the movements platform that's open aired with a big rainbow labyrinth on it. So each morning we'll be doing either yoga or breath work or different exercises, embodiment exercises, learning different ways to move energy throughout the body and to really connect into places in the body that haven't been explored. And then it'll be leading up to a hape ceremony. So hape is a sacred tobacco plant medicine that I've been working with, that is just really grounding, really protecting, really powerful, really fairly gentle. It's not like, this big hallucinatory experience, but it's profound with moving energy. It's profound in rewiring the brain, healing the brain, releasing negative beliefs and thought forms. It'll be leading up to a ceremony in which everyone will have the opportunity to do hape and use the tools that we've learned, to for their experience, to move the energy throughout their body. And then we'll be swimming with dolphins in the natural habitat, because the space is just a mile and a half up from where the spinner dolphins come into the bay. Yeah, so the couple of times that I've been there, I've had the opportunity in a week stay to swim with them a couple of different times. So I know we'll be able to swim with them at least once, but maybe more. And that's hands down been one of the best I've done it a couple of times now. So some of the best experiences of my life have been swimming with the dolphins, the spinners especially, because they're super fun. Like literally when they were studied as to why they do the spin flips, the study showed that it was just for fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, to incorporate, it's more fun, please. So that's kind of the retreat in a nutshell.
Awesome. That sounds so exciting. We'll put all the links for your retreat and how to get in touch with you in the show notes. This is episode number 16. So the link is jessicatomlinson.com/show-16. And as we wrap up, Angela, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you feel called to share?
More than anything, I'm just feeling grateful that you've had me on the show. So thank you so much. And just feel appreciative to everyone that's tuning in. We live in a time where watching a whole program is not something that we like always make it through anymore. So I just feel really appreciative for the attention, and grateful that there are so many amazing people showing up in the world to do the work that they really feel called to do. So I just feel called to give that acknowledgement to anyone watching that it is no small feat, and it's absolutely what the world needs more of. So I'm just grateful and inspired continually.
Mm, yay. Thank you so much for ending on that. That feels really, really good. And why don't you go ahead and just give your website if you'd like, so that if people don't make it to the page for the link, you want to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal website is angelarosefields.com. And then my new website for integrative cancer coaching is integrativecancercoach.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela. I adore you.
Oh, ditto, ditto. Thank you so much, Jess. It's an absolute honor.